Hello, everyone. Welcome to Making Marketing Accountable. Today, we have a wonderful presentation for you by David Aaker called Two Huge Future Branding Opportunities. So we are here to celebrate World Brand Day. China established in May 10th as its annual brand day in 2016. And in 2023, the ISO Technical Committee 289, which deals with both brand evaluation and brand valuation standards, declared May 10th to be World Brand Day globally. Since May 10th is falling on a weekend this year, we are having celebrations all week long. So this is our second webinar in that series. But today we're here to see a presentation by David Acker. David is a recognized authority on branding and is noted for developing several recognizable concepts, including the Acker brand vision model. He has authored and published hundreds of articles, fantastic articles. I've in my own career have gotten a lot of value from them, and 18 books on the topic of branding. David has received numerous awards for his contributions to science and marketing. Just a couple are in 2015, he was inducted into the American Marketing Association Hall of Fame for his lifetime achievements in marketing. And in 2020, he was the recipient of the Chet Foundation Medal for exceptional contribution to marketing scholarship and practice. So with that, let's welcome David.
Thanks, Frank. About 11 years ago, I had six books on branding and 1,800 pages. It was overwhelming. So I wrote Aaker on branding to summarize my key ideas in one place in a compact way. And then people get interested in something, they could read one of the books. Well, since 11 years has passed, and I've written three books since then. I wrote one on creating signature stories, and one on branding and innovation, and one on signature social programs, and so and the world has changed, and so I it was time to update the book, and so now I have a second edition that's published today. So this is a big day for me. Thankfully, getting a lot of interest, and so I hope that this will provide an entree into my thinking and work. Um, and and in doing the process, I was able to kind of reflect on what's happened in the last 11 years, last decade and a bit more, and how are things differently. And what I really came to believe is that there's four or five challenges that existed then, but they're greatly magnified now. And two of the main challenges I'll talk about today, and I want to position them as the fact not so much on their challenges as on their opportunities they represent. They both represent really amazing strategic opportunities. So, what are the game changing opportunities for brands that we've never had in the last maybe half century? We've got some real opportunities for the branding team today. You know, people say that branding is obsolete, and nothing could be further from the truth. And I'll give you two of the reasons for that today. The first is branding and disruptive innovation, and it all started when I did a lot of work in Japan. I was there 40 times or something, and I got a hold of Japan beer data at one point, and I had over 30 years of data. And if you look at that data, you see only four times the market share trajectory changed. Four times in 35 years. I mean, Kirin beer for a long time was the Budweiser of Japan. 60% market share, almost never changed. And then we had four disruptive innovations. That's what makes things change. That's what causes growth. And it's almost impossible to grow with my brand is better than your brand. So I made that conclusion. I looked at a lot of categories, and I found the same kind of thing, that the only way to grow, with rare exceptions, is with disruptive innovation. And that means owning a changing new subcategory that's defined by must haves. And a must have is something that customer insists on. If a brand does not have a must have, it will not be relevant. Must have is a new or superior buying or use experience, or a new or superior meaningful brand relationship. So it doesn't have to be a functional benefit innovation. It can be a very different but valued brand relationship that people get uncomfortable when it doesn't exist. So what we're conceptualizing is two ways to winning. The normal way, the brand preference competition is my brand is better than your brand. And in some defining category. And winning is your competitors are not preferred. My brand is better than your brand marketing is just so ineffective at creating real growth. It really just is. And it's really not very much fun to slog around and try to create stuff that people ignore. If they don't ignore, they have a lot of skepticism. So what we have to look at in this day and age is subcategory competition. That means creating a must-have, defining a new subcategory, and winning the relevance competition. And that means that competitors are not considered. Competitors are not relevant, or the competitors are less relevant. And that's how you win. That's how you achieve growth. The challenge is branding is missing from this whole important strategic movement. You look at uh, the major thought books out on that. Michael Porter, Mark Simpson, Clayton Christensen had the first one. He's the one that coined the term disruptive innovation, but of course he used it a little bit differently than I'm using it, but it's got some of the same qualities. And the big book in disruptive innovation is Blue Ocean Strategy. I don't think Christensen mentioned branding at all in his book. Blue Ocean Strategy has a half page on the the advantages of being the first brand into the marketplace and the pioneer advantage. A half a page out of their whole book. Branding is forgotten. Branding is considered something that you do at the very launch of your disruptive innovation. The focus is on getting those must-haves right, getting them ready for market. The focus is on getting resources, selling the project internally or selling it to uh, venture capital people if you're externally. That's the focus. And branding is the last thing they talk about. They often don't have access to branding talent. And and so what the big opportunity here is to make branding an active partner in disruptive innovation. And and so in doing so, branding has four jobs. The first job is to help find and develop the must-haves in the first place. I mean, branding brings a lot to the table: marketing insights, knowledge of customer needs, knowledge of market trends, and you have a brand vision that can identify the points of leverage, the places you can expand a brand, places you can use a brand to support the innovation. And it's good at that early stage, a pre-launch stage of knowing what the branding needs are going to be of the disruptive innovation and make sure they're in place. Second job, make the brand an exemplar. And how do you become the exemplar of the brand? That's a brand that represents the whole new subcategory. Uh, well, you could be the market leader. It's really hard to be the exemplar if you're not the market leader. And so that means you want to uh, gain market share very early. Second, you can be the exemplar by having a personality. Being the disruptor of a market gives you license to be the irreverent, funny guy. to give you the ability to ridicule the old established brand who takes a customer for granted. For when you get to be a mature uh, subcategory leader, it's not so easy to ridicule. It's a little seems a little tasteless. Um, but when you're young and established, you can do almost anything. You can be the feisty underdog. People like an underdog. If you look at the Dollar Shave Club, and I encourage you to go on YouTube and look at their initial ad, their initial video, 3 minute video, and there's the owner who was a stand up comedian didn't hurt that, but uh, he put this video. Our brands are effing great, and he ridiculed the drugstores for creating razor blade, locked lock boxes, and he ridiculed Gillette for having so many options. And he came out with an online version, the online shaving club. The first 2 days after this video came out, this hilarious video, he got 18,000 people to join his club, and that started the disruption. 4 years later, he sold it for $1 billion to Unilever. 4 years later, and it was this brand personality that made him the spokesman. And you can have the passion for the product arena. Casper is about sleep, not mattresses, and they have the sleep channel to support that. And so they're the market leader for this alternative view of what selling mattresses is all about. The third job, position the subcategory. You have to position that make the sub halves prominent when people look at the subcategory or thinking about buying something. If you look at Salesforce, they were the pioneer, the exemplar of cloud software. 1999, 25 years ago, and they were the first uh, software company to commercialize software in the cloud. The must-haves: nothing to buy and maintain, continuous upgrades, secure data, and a personality. Cool, advanced, not obsolete. And they'd show pictures of a World War II or World War I airplane versus a modern jet, and they did all kinds of stunts. They would uh, ticket the convention of their rival, and with science, software is obsolete. And what they meant by that is software that's not in the cloud is obsolete. The Wall Street Journal in December of 1999. I mean, Salesforce started in the spring of 1999. Salesforce takes lead in latest software innovation. I mean, that's the exemplar at work. The 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 final job is to uh, build barriers. Now, you already have two barriers built in with your positioning um, task, and that is you have real strength in the must-haves. You're really associated with those elements of the brand. And second, you have loyal customers because you've made a splash. You've built up your customer base, and that's a huge barrier. But there's other things you can do. You can have continuous innovation like Prius did. It maintained dominance over uh, a new subcategory, namely hybrid cars, for over 10 years. For over 10 years, they were it. They sold, I don't know, 13 million cars. Um, and you can brand the innovation. And look at what Uniqlo has done with their fabric innovation. They branded it. Heat Tech, heat generating clothing. They also came up with Airism, which is clothing for the summertime. And when you brand it, magic happens. I mean, it's hard to communicate without a brand, but more important, you can own it. Competitors can create their own fabrics, but they don't have heat tech. They don't have the authentic stuff. They don't have the stuff from a company that continues to improve it. So that's one idea. And the second one is signature social programs. A society needs help from business. You know, we got global warming, we've got inequality, we got unhealthy lifestyles, and and business has as a role to play. They have resources, they have knowledge, they have agility. The government can't do it all, especially when we have government that is turning its back on on some of these problems. And business needs it too. Employees and others demand it for one reason. Um, and a business brand also needs energy. It needs engagement. It needs an image lift. And most business brands cannot get that. They just can't get it. They're just boring. If they're not boring, they're people are skeptical of anything they say about it. But you know, you really can't get very far by talking how good your bar soap is. Christopher Wren, reportedly, the legend goes, was walking down the street in 1690. He saw three workers, and he asked the first, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm laying bricks." And the second said, "I'm building a wall." And the third said, "I'm building a cathedral." Employees want to work with companies that are building cathedrals, and customers want to be associated with organizations that are building cathedrals. Well, what's the challenge? The challenge is that companies are stepping up. They're spending a lot of resources on social problems. But what this looks like is they have a whole bunch of grant programs. They give grants. They have volunteer programs. Their employees and sometimes their customers volunteer. They have energy goals, sometimes 20 or 30 energy goals. And we're going to change the light bulb in every retail outlet or every factory and so on. A lot of energy goals. They have ESG scores. But what happens? What does this look like to the customers and even the employees? It reeks of sameness. It's like everybody else is doing. It appears ad hoc. It lacks visibility. It's not communicated. It's awfully hard to communicate with you don't have a brand. So what's the opportunity? The opportunity is to create signature social programs that will add to a business energy, an image lift, differentiation, and engagement of customers and employees. And these are four things that are so important to a business, especially energy and differentiation. If you don't have energy, you become what I call a graveyard brand. A graveyard brand is a brand that everybody knows about, but they never consider it when they come to buy or use a product or service. And differentiation, we know, is the most important thing. The most robust empirical finding in all of marketing in the last century, maybe in all business strategy, the most empirical, robust finding is that the best predictor of new product success, the best predictor of new product success, it's differentiation. Not only does differentiation give you a reason to buy, it makes it visible. It gives you a reason to learn about it. And so differentiation is really important, and a signature program can give you this. Well, what is a signature social program? It's a program that represents the social purpose. So every organization should have a social purpose. I think that many organizations have a purpose that includes or at least accepts a social program within its umbrella. But if it doesn't, you need a social purpose and a business purpose. It's something that addresses real societal needs. It touches, it inspires. It's credible. It has real impact with commitment. If something happens, it's not just words, and it's branded. And that's so critical because a brand is the only way to connect and to communicate. So let's be clear here. The goal number one of a social effort is to impact societal challenge. But goal number two is to elevate a business brand, energy lift, image lift, engagement lift. And the business gain will then come. There'll be a customer connection, there'll be employee motivation, there'll be respect from partners. So let me give you a few examples. Dove was a not a soap, a beauty cream bar, they called it. It was developed in 1952. It grew out of some research used to treat soldiers in the war. And it was a patented moisturizer cream. They used to have ads where they pour this cream into a bar of soap. But in 2000, in early 2000s, 2002 or three, they had now started to make shampoo and deodorant. The patents on moisturizing had run out, so they needed a new way to grow. And they did a global study of brands. They got this instinct that the company that women were um, really disturbed by the beauty standard of the day, and under 3% believed that they were beautiful. So they came up with the Dove Real Beauty program, and then every year since then, almost every year, they come out with a program that tell that story in a different way. In 2013, they talk about sketches. They had a sketch artist draw a picture of a woman based on her self description versus that of a stranger. The tagline was, "You are more beautiful than you think," because the stranger's description based sketch was much prettier than your own. They got 180 million views of this ad that went viral. At that point in time, it was the most viral ad ever made. The most viral ad ever made. And this was 10 years or 9 years into their Real Beauty program. You would think the program would have gotten tired. So what happened? It was a home run. Hundreds of millions of women, teen and teenage girls were transformed. They also developed early on the teen self uh, self-respect program, self-esteem program. Hundreds of millions, literally hundreds of millions. And the Dove brand was energized. Sales went from 2.4 billion to 6.5 billion, all on the train of the Real Beauty program. They didn't get there by telling how their bar soap was better than another bar soap or their shampoo was unique. That didn't happen. It was all on the back of the Real Beauty program. So the point is, no matter how boring or uninvolving your product is, you can make a difference. So what happens here is we have a branded social program that gives you an energy, image, and engagement lift, and that enhances the business brand. And that encourages the business brand to give even more resources and endorsement to the branded social program. And then that in turn, that allowing that program to thrive and to expand gives more energy lift. So you have a flywheel. And incidentally, you know, for some social programs that lack passion, lack commitment, they're accused of doing it just to win business. And of course, Dove did this just to win business, but nobody accuses Dove of that. Nobody. Why? Because they made a commitment over nearly 2 decades now, because they're passionate about it, because they're knowledgeable about it. They really understand the nuances of this Real Beauty standard. They've really connected with a audience that was ready for it. Uh, Another story is that of Barclays. In 2012, it was the least trusted brand, the least trusted industry. Social purpose, helping people achieve their ambition in the right way, was created because all the advertising they did to correct this liability was not working. So they put out some social programs, one of which was digital egos to teach people how to thrive in a digital world. 12 employees was the initial team. Online courses, T and Teach, house calls, coding for kids. And then they put out stories to describe their clients. One was Steve Rich, who injured his knee and could no longer play soccer, but he could play walking soccer. No running, no contact, 6 people per side. And he has the digital egos to help him make a website to organize and publicize this sport he loved. So they helped him with the keywords, connecting people with teams, information on schedule and tournaments, and so on. And look at the results. In just a year and a half or so from putting out these stories, trust was up 33%, 5 times that of prior efforts. Consideration up 130%. And by 2015, they got 5,000 positive press mentions. 5,000. I mean, you got to put that in perspective. Before that, they're the most hated brand in the most hated industry. They got thousands of negative press mentions all the time. And that came from a signature social program. Uh, one last one. Not everybody can develop their own social program, a digital egos or a real beauty program. There's a lot of reasons why not to do that. It's hard to create a new brand. It's hard to create a program. It's hard to find a niche. But you can adopt a nonprofit. Thrivent, a $200 billion financial services company with 2 million customers, has a purpose. Humanity thrives when people make the most of all they are given. And one of the ways they implemented that purpose was by adapting Habitat for Humanity about 17 years ago. And uh, when they adapted, well, first of all, Thrivent organizes their 2 million customers and friends into local groups organized by zip code. And these local brand communities do social good. And about half of their social good is devoted to Habitat for Humanity. And they have Thrivent action teams, though they had a team of 8 or 10 people to go build homes in Africa or to go to the park and clean it up. And so that's all embedded in this brand community. And they have a brand for their habitat effort. Thrivent builds. And so that does so much for Thrivent. Gives it energy, image, it gives it involvement, gives it respect, gives it inspiration. So anyway, those 2 opportunities for branding that are described in the second edition of my branding book. And so think big. Uh, and let me conclude by sort of making a couple of observations about accountability, which is the mission of this organization. The first observation is quantifying any intangible is hard. I mean, people don't even try to say, what's the value of our staff? What's the value of the internal culture, which is so important to us? And brand is intangible. It's hard to determine the quality of the brand. And the reason for that, you're going to have 5 or 6 or 7 intangibles. And if you take any one of them away, you have nothing left. They're all indispensable. So it's hard to quantify. Second of all, be careful of data analysis. First of all, be careful of cross-sectional analysis. In the 1970s and 80s, the leading strategy model of the day was the growth share matrix. And what that said, among other things, was if you increase market share, you'll become more profitable. And the evidence was cross sectional. Larger companies made more money than smaller companies, smaller share companies. And because they had scale economies, but they also had other things. They had a customer base, they had talent, they had R&D investment. So it wasn't that simple. And it turns out that if you increase market share, especially if you bought it with brand damaging programs, you didn't grow your sales at all. And your profits went way down. So it didn't work. And it was partially the fault of cross sectional analysis. The other thing to be aware of is short term measures. In 1980s, scanner data came out. And suddenly you could scientifically do marketing. You could do experiments. And what people learned was that price off promotions are the only thing that moved the data. And so everybody flooded into price off promotions. And and it destroyed brands. The Kraft brand took years to recover. And again, there was no sales bumps, and there was profit degradation all over the place. They taught customers that price was the most important thing. And so these two things helped found the foundation, the motivation for brand equity, which means we got to treat brand as an asset. You need the long-term performance of a brand to really grow and thrive. A third observation is that there's some scientific thing that really works that we can do and we are doing. It's called before after experiments by the scientists, before after. So you look at what Dove is before, you have a treatment named the Real Beauty campaign, and you look what Dove is doing after. Sales, you can use it next year after, you can look today when sales are 6.5 billion. And that's a scientific experiment because before and after, a lot of things are the same. The same brand, the same product, the same management team, the same retailers, and so on. The major change has been this treatment effect, the Real Beauty campaign. So we should look toward these to demonstrate the value of brands. Another way to do that is to assess the brand strength and uh, and look at its brand relevance, the brand image, the brand loyalty, the two pillars of brand equity, and then ask how will the brand impact the business. So in my book, I look at 16 ways the brand impacts a business. And you should look at each of these ways, pick out the 4 or 5 that's most relevant for your business. So under brand relevance, for example, it engenders trust, familiarity, aids communication. It suggests market is accepted this brand, so you can too. So all those are ways that brand relevance helps the business. Brand image, it differentiates, it resonates, it communicates, it creates liking, and those all help a business tangibly. Brand loyalty gives you predictable sales, reduced marketing costs, competitor barriers, and that's how you help a business. So if you look at a business from this lens, I think you'll get a very accurate view of the value of the business. Now, it's still going to be subjective. Any quantitative value you place on it's going to have quite a large error factor because of the subjectivity. But this is really an honest, thorough way of looking at your brand. Okay, we have a few minutes for questions if there are any.
So David, yes, we have them rolling in. So I'll read off a few of them to you. We'll start with this one by Neil Bendel. He says, David, what would be your advice on branding for startups? Particularly, how can branding be used to encourage early stage investors?
Well, I think that it starts with these must-haves. It starts with the brand vision. What does your brand stand for? And what I've seen really happen. What I argue is that a brand vision should not be a single phrase. It should be multidimensional. And second, it should not have predetermined dimensions. You should use the dimensions that's important for you. And so, uh, if you take, we have a nonprofit that was formed to help elderly stay in their home by providing services they need. But as they evolved, they developed a brand that had two other uh, pillars, and one was providing social benefits to connect people with each other, and that and uh, and a third was to have it to age healthy and so forth, and not just get older but get healthier. So the point is that you really have to know what you stand for. It has to differentiate, it has to resonate, and it really needs to be intriguing too. And if you get that right, then you're going to uh, have a better chance at getting investors. And when it comes time to launch, to get the thing off the ground. So it really starts with the brand vision. It really starts with what are the must-haves? What's going to make you special? Why should this win in the marketplace? And and that's a really place. But then when you come to the tactical idea, I think it's really important to have a tagline and a visual symbol if you can. I think it's really important to be creative. As I said in my talk, you have license early on to be irreverent, to be humorous, to be a little bit off the wall, and you can do that and attract attention and elevate the prominence of these must-haves. Um, but in many respects, a startup has an easier time to energize a brand that does a mature business.
Fantastic. David, we have Joanna Seddon, Masby CEO. She would like to ask a question verbally. So Joanna,
Okay.
you are unmuted.
Fantastic. David, um, as CEO of Masby, and as in a past life many years ago, the creator of the Brandsy ranking of the world's most valuable brands, um, I would like to kind of take further what you said and posit a slightly different view on brand valuation and the value of brands and the accounting approach to brands. Now, I agree with you totally that, just a brand valuation number is a number. Sure, people could do it differently. Numbers change every day. The value of a brand changes, can change overnight. So, numbers, in my view, have the brand valuation number has one use. It sends a signal to non-finance minded senior executives and CFOs and boards that brand must matter because there's big numbers attached to it, and they don't understand anything without a number attached. But I also find in everything I do at Masby and in my consulting role that the way to manage a brand and to get the right decisions made, to get the budget for it, you have to not stop at loyalty, relevance, etc. You have to take one step further and link it directly to sales and profits and and business value. And there is no way it doesn't matter in that respect if the brand is it's not about the number in that case. It's about many numbers. It's about demonstrating not the what of the brand value, but the how and the why. It's about using understanding of customers through various kinds of research, to understand why people buy a product, why they're willing to pay more a product if it's positioned at a premium. And then you can say, well, this brand versus that brand, it is doing a much better job of persuading its customers and the world at large to buy its products. The brand is much more powerful. So let us learn how the ones that do better do it so we can improve our brand. And that is really, as far as I can see, the secret to branding. So you need to take it a step further. So I just wanted to add that, to make sure we had the financial perspective from a slightly different angle, not from a number, but from understanding how brands drive numbers, which is a little different.
Yeah, let me comment, Joanna. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. That was really
Sorry,
nice,
I didn't mean to rant.
nice overview. Very thoughtful. I would add a couple of things. One is that a methodology that allocates intangibles to the brand is very helpful for you. The reason you said it gives people, the executives, a wake up call that this brand has got a lot of value, and that we should therefore continue to invest in it. Does one other thing as a practical matter. It helps you allocate resources. If you have different countries or different products, and you see the brand value that differ in those different things, it can give you a it helps you get address the question: have I allocated my brand building budget over products or over countries wisely? And that's the second practical thing it does. What it doesn't do is allow you to say, "Well, I had a good year because my brand value went up." Um, unless there's a uh, huge change. But anyway, so I applaud that, putting a value on a brand. That's fine. What I worry about is I heard some people say, "God, we went from 38 to 28, and didn't we do a good job?" Well, first of all, you have to know, in my former life, I was a statistician, but I can tell you, going from 38 to 28 is not necessarily an improvement. It might just be noise. So the second thing I would say is that, first of all, I'll go back to this before after experiment. I mean, that's science. That's solid science. That's not that's not much subjectivity there. And uh, and when you do that, you should look at short-term sales and short-term profits, and you should look at and the strength of the brand too, because what we this business that short-termism should is more important now, because we're in stress or whatever. We're tired of building the brands, and or because we get measured by short-term results, and so hell with brands. Um, and it now goes under the name demand marketing or performance marketing or something. But the idea is, what you want to do is to create vehicles that are brand building, and they're so powerful, they create uh, short-term measures as well. I mean, look at the Dove Real Beauty program. You see 17 years of short-term gains. Every year they're getting short-term gains as well as brand building gains. So the brand building is so effective that it delivers short-term gains. And another thing, you can have short-term programs of three types. You can have short-term programs that draw on the brand to make them more effective. You can have short-term programs that don't draw on the brand, but they also don't damage the brand. They're compatible with the brand. They live comfortably with the brand. And you can have short-term programs that destroy the brand or damage the brand. That's what happened in the middle '80s, when you got people doing sites out programs that created short-term pops. And so anyway, there should not. Profit did a study about the companies that did demand marketing versus brand marketing, and they found that the really successful ones did both in harmony, and they didn't try to have each go their separate ways and be counterproductive against each other.
I have to say that I agree with you. Now, I was at Ogilvy for many years before founding Prescient with some partners from Ogilvy. And so I know Dove very well and have indeed done work on linking all the brand work that Ogilvy did on Dove, the Real Beauty campaign, to driving value. And the concept was always driving value. A good brand, well managed, should drive value at 3 points. It should drive value long-term, lasting value. It should drive value medium term, quarter to quarter, and it should drive value instantly. I mean, there should be no type of demand generation campaign that doesn't fit with the brand and have an element of brand in it. And so you can drive brand. I couldn't agree more that you can drive brand at all points. I think it's a really great point.
All right, wonderful. All right, great discussion. We have quite a few more questions here, David, for you. One is from Greg Silverman. He would like to know, how would you recommend a brand navigate social programs when governments and consumers are penalizing those who invest in them?
It's a really good question and a topical question. Um, it sort of reflects the insanity we're in that question should even be raised. But it, it it's something I thought about a long time about whether executives should be involved in policy arguments. And I have always thought that they're best to stay away from that because they'll alienate a good chunk of their marketplace, and they will not affect the ones that are sympathetic because they're already there. And so it's kind of a no-win. And furthermore, sometimes their speaking out can be counterproductive. Just stir up the people that oppose their view, and it won't change the people that are for their view. However, I don't know that the days might come to the point where it's necessary to sort of oppose some things that seem to you have a long-term um, ability in our society to function. So it's a really good question. However, the uh, in that context, one answer is that if you focus on real social problems, if you focus on inequality, the lack of opportunity, the climate change, and so on, that's not controversial. And if you exhibit real commitment, real passion, real knowledge, and real effectiveness, um, nobody's going to question your efforts. Well, there'll all be somebody that question everything, but you can't please everybody. And so, uh, with Dove, the Dove Real Beauty program, I can't imagine that anybody would would criticize you for that. I mean, I'm suppose there's some people that say that the old uh, the old slogan, "Business is in the business of making money and nothing else." But that's it's so wrong on so many levels. I mean, a business has to have a purpose. It has to motivate uh, employees. It has to be something that people are comfortable with, and it has to have associations that that come together to give you a relationship and a comfort level. And so what you want to do is to have, have a focus that your node for the Habitat for Humanity or the Digital Eagles or the Real Beauty program, and then you don't have to worry, I don't think, about that controversy at all. And if you do that, there'll be a few isolated people that don't like it, but you can't please everyone.
We have another question here from Saket Kandawal, and it has to do with greenwashing. And he says, I believe greenwashing means when a brand makes exaggerated or dubious claims with respect to the environment, sustainability of its brands. For today, for example, I saw a tagline on an advertisement wherein an international brand claimed good for the planet. What does it really mean? It has such a broad claim being made. For example, even for electric vehicles, it can be said that the materials that go into their manufacture may not be made in a non-sustain or in a sustainable way. So David, based on that, on this whole greenwashing aspect, what do you think about will adopting this kind of social purpose strategy, will that help keep brands from going down this greenwashing path?
Not literally. If your a goal is only to improve your brand, and you don't have a passion for your social purpose, you're vulnerable. Coca-Cola once did this stuff on the polar bears were in trouble because of the ice thing, and they had polar bear mascots and all that, and they didn't know shit about polar bears or the Arctic, and that lasted a year, and they got ridiculed, and then there was a cosmetic firm in UK. What's the name? Anyway, it was going to save the trees and all that, and it didn't know shit about trees. And they ended up planting trees in the wrong place, and they made the thing worse instead of better. The point is, that's really forests are complicated, and they didn't really do that. So you really have to have something that you're committed to, that you can get knowledgeable about, that you can really develop programs that are effective and so on. And climate change is very complex. So if you're in the climate change business, it's you got to really tread lightly, and that's why a really good option is to, instead of invest in having a team that gets into knowing what real beauty is, you do what Tribant did, is you join forces with Habitat for Humanity, and they've looked at the second order effects, the nuances, and so on, and then you're in much safer ground. Incidentally, I'd like Joanna to respond to the last question. What do you think about CEOs taking positions on political issues, Joanna?
Oh, that is a tough one. Thank you for throwing it my way. Yeah. Um, a brand should be true to its purpose, as you have been saying. It is all about sticking with your brand equity and not giving in to anything. So, on principle, I would say that whether you are left wing or right wing, you should, it is okay to support political issues that fit with your brand. So if you're Patagonia supporting, preservation of wild places and wildlife would make sense.
What if
Speaking
you're
to this day.
Patagonia and there's a law being proposed to change some management of parks and protected spaces? Should you visibly go out and become a leader in opposing that law?
I think that the purpose of a brand is it's essentially to create financial value for its shareholders and to sell products. It is not to become a political advocate. But, frankly, look at Ben and Jerry. It's dangerous and can get you into trouble. So does it put your brand potentially at risk? Yes, it does.
Well,
Look at
Ben and
Harvard.
Jerry's are the exception that proves the rule, right? I mean, they can do anything.
Well, I know, but there are exception that shows that there is a rule, which is that if you do it right, if you support the causes that really fit with your brand, I'm not sure that it's the role of a company to lead a political cause, but certainly to back ones that fit with their purpose. Because if they have a bigger purpose, they should support things that fit that purpose. That would be, I mean, I'm just inventing that off the top of my head, so don't hold me to it. It's a very interesting question. I think about it, but I think that would be, in principle, that's the purpose. I think the question is, how far do you go?
Yeah, I think about it a lot, and I gradually changed my position a bit, but I I still say that the money is best spent with something that you're willing to commit, have passion for, and can make a difference.
Well, and that's exactly what that could be in your, Patagonia and protecting wildlife, that sort of example. Um, but it has risk.
David, we wanted to thank you for your wonderful presentation today, and the discussion was absolutely fabulous. So thank you so much for participating in World Brand Day.
Okay, thanks for having me. Thank you, Joanna.
You're a pleasure to have you.